and welcome back. We're still with Artisan First, the global live stream of artisans and crafts from India and Sri Lanka. We currently have with us Rigzin Lachic and Bérengèr Guillon for Hatti. Hatti is an initiative that is a little over a year and a half old and is dedicated to preserving and promoting traditional artisanal practices in the region of Ladakh. And I'm very happy that we have the founders of Hatti joining us. Lachic is joining us from Ladakh, and Bérengèr is joining us from France, where she is currently stuck during the lockdown. Hello and welcome. So I want you to tell me how both of you, came to Ladakh and got involved with crafts in Ladakh to actually come up with the idea of Hatti.
So hi everyone, my name is Bérengèr and I'm 26 years old. I'm from France. My English is not perfect, so do let me know if it's not clear. I'm sorry for that. How I came to India, so first time it was in 2015 and I was doing my bachelor in landscaping, and right after my study I came to Ladakh to work as a volunteer in a monastery. I was doing the garden with the monks. It's quite difficult to explain what this experience represents for me. First of all, I'm a mountain lover, and of course the landscape are amazing in Ladakh, but I also discovered a new culture, Himalayan lifestyle, the kindness of Ladakhi people, and after all I was feeling home. So after this internship, I wanted to travel more and more. So I went to work in South Africa and South America during the winter, but Ladakh was always in my mind. So I decided to come back, and finally I worked 3 summer season in the monastery. And after all of this, I met my husband, which is a Ladakhi mountain guide. And I think it was, in 2017, I met Lachic, with who I start a few new projects as Hattie, that we will start talking to you. And now it's been like 6 years I'm living there. I'm doing like most of the time 6 months in France and 6 months in India.
So Lachic, I know that you are born in Ladakh, but I know that you didn't grow up there. So how did you come back? And of course, I know also you wanted to start sustainable tourism practices in Ladakh, and that was a link to how Hatti came about. But could you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So, Jule everybody, I'm Rigzin Lachic, and I'd like to identify myself as a social entrepreneur. I was born in Ladakh, but I never had the opportunity to grow up here. I moved back 2.5 years ago when I started my project Dolkhar, which is an upcoming boutique stay that aims to promote Ladakh's history through art and architecture. And that's when actually I met Bérengèr. And with an aim to sort of source locally for the project, we ended up with a huge network of local artisans and realized that they were all mostly, the last generation of their kind, and that there was a need to help them preserve and promote their skills. And that's how the whole idea of Hatti came up.
So I know that Hatti does a lot of various sort of activities with the different communities. I'd first like you to tell us what are the various crafts that you work with?
Yeah, so Bérengèr, you can take it from here, and then
So a lot of the information that we share of the crafts today is going to be in the form of visual stories, story essays, and this is because a lot of the craftspeople work in villages that are not accessible right now, because a lot of the villages are sealed off to protect them from people bringing in the coronavirus. And the other reason is that a lot of these villages also do not have network connection. And so the easiest way to share this is actually going to be via photo stories. Bérengèr, do you want to tell us about the activities?
Yeah. So as Lachic was saying, we start working together on a resort, resort project. And when we start working on this, we start with about like 30 different artisans for the interior of the building. But after this project, they will mostly be left with no work when it's complete. So that's how we decide to continue the work with them and start working on Hattie. Hattie, it means shop in Ladakhi language. And at the beginning, our main concern was to provide a platform for these artisans to sell their products in the market in Leh. So Leh is the capital city of Ladakh. So because like you need to understand that Ladakh has grown extremely popular for tourism in the past few years. It's above 60% of the local economy comes from this industry. But unfortunately, our artisans can't live properly with this, like with what they are making with the craft. So most of them are laborers during the day, and they like wave carpets or do pottery only during when they have free time. So they do it mostly for their personal uses, and they try to sell it, but only when some tourists come in the village or during festivals, but they are too far from the main capital to sell it in the market. For example, if I take like the stone maker, is living near the border of Pakistan, and for us it's like 2 days to reach him. So it's impossible also for him to come. It's also a lot of expenses just to come to the market and sell whatever he's making. So one objective of Hattie is to use the tourism industry to provide economic support for the handicraft. It's been, yeah, you can see some picture. It's been like 1 year we start this project. And right now we are currently building a shop in the main market where we are using local and traditional techniques of Ladakh, like mud bricks, willow, poplar wood. There is, you can see on the picture, but there is a lot of traditional craft in Ladakh. So the most famous, of course, is the pashmina making. But for example, today we work with a basket weaver, a group of women who weave carpets. You can also find wood, copper, stonework. And we realize that each valley of Ladakh has its own crafts. So one objective of Hattie was to provide this platform space to promote and like the products and involve. We also want to involve, like you can see on the picture, but we can involve the artisan in the decision making. So like the prices, the design. We always respect the originality and the cultural identity of the products, while providing, when it's necessary, some ideas and future scope of their products. So it can be design, aesthetic. We help with marketing and branding. Well, so like, yeah, when we start the project, honestly, I did not know anything about, like not much about handicraft, but I think with our network, with Lachic, we can try to promote them, and that's how we can help them with our skills. So we learn a lot from them, and now we try to spread their story during like a few conferences in India. We did in Nepal, in France as well. And yeah, this year we, like you have seen on the picture, we did some conferences. We work with magazines. We were lucky, we shoot a documentary for French TV. So yeah, we try to promote them more and more. And Hattie is not only about selling, but we wish to create, exchange, and share their skills with locals, with kids, like on this picture, and also with tourists. So we started to organize workshop last year. And like, if you can see, the pottery workshop with kids is about to experience of exploring with clay and feeling what it is like to make your own authentic pots, and then you take it as a souvenir back home. So during this day, you spend the entire day with the potter, which is Ajang Sepal, it's his name, and you eat lunch with the family. You are in his house. It makes value to the work, and you realize how much it's difficult to make what they are making, pots or whatever, or how long, for example, for the carpet, how long it takes to realize to make an entire carpet. Like if I take an example of weaving workshop, which we started it recently. So it's ideal for beginners. It can be tourists, it can be locals, kids who want to learn the basic techniques of the weaving. And it's starting from like the beginning, the raw material to the finishing carpet. So you can see all the steps of one product. So of course, Lachic and I, we are the founder of this project, but many people join us along this year. So we have like some volunteers, students, it can be locals, it can be foreigners who help us during like different tasks. You can see the building of the shop, and yeah, on this picture, it's a nice picture to see all the team with the potter, his son, and on the left you can see our amazing photographer, which is taking all our picture you can see today.
Thank you, Bérengèr. Lachic, I wanted to ask you, what are the future plans that you have for Hattie?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're an initiative still in our nascent stage, and we're only about 1.5 years old. So far, like Bérengèr had said, you know, we're promoting their products. We're also trying to preserve their skills through, you know, workshops. We're trying to use tourism as that economic driving force to sort of support them. But you know, if COVID didn't happen, but we had big plans of sort of expanding our network of artisans this year, because there are a lot more. And we also wanted to sort of, you know, the shop that we're constructing in the market is sort of half done. We wanted to complete that. And apart from that, I think one major, you know, aim we had for this year was to sort of engage these artisans in local schools and help them sort of add traditional handicraft in the curriculum of the schools here, which is a very important, I think, sort of way to engage the kids, as well as you know, in turn help preserve what these local artisans are doing. So yeah, and I'd like to apologize for not being able to take you through a live experience because of limited network in Ladakh. But the team at India by Hand has put together beautiful photo essays to give you a sense of our work, and maybe we can move on to that.
Yes, so we'll be going through these photo essays. They will also be available online if you want to go through them in detail. For now, Lachic will just give us an overview as Andy flips through the photo essays.
Yeah, so the first photo essay has been put together to give you a sense of the life of the potters, who mostly reside in the village of Likir. Likir has been known for the art of pottery for generations, and it also has a lot to do with the clay content in the soil that is found in the mountains across the valley. We'll flip through it. So there are two main types of these clays that are generally used. One is Zasa, which is sort of the one that comes from the red soil, and the other called Thapsa, which is slightly the grayish, blackish version of that soil. The Thapsa was sort of traditionally used to construct, to build our traditional kitchen stoves. But now what these potters do is they source both the clays and create a mix with a set proportion of sand, and then they sort of turn this into, you know, the products that they're making.
I wanted to actually, Andy, if you go a little further, there is an image of a lot of the molds. Yes, if you just stop here. Lachi, could you just tell us about this? I know that most of us are familiar with pottery being done on a wheel.
Yeah.
And I know that pottery in Ladakh is more a process of molding, shaping, and combining different forms, as opposed to it being thrown on a wheel.
Yeah. So the wheel, you could say, that is being used by the local artisans, the local potters here, is one version of like the slow wheel, which they sort of turn with one hand and then they shape with the other. This is unlike the usual wheels, the electric wheels, or the pedal wheels that are used across the country, or even otherwise, which is a very interesting sort of you know which has a very interesting angle to it. Well, they have also experimented with electric wheels, which were sort of donated, I think, through one of the, I think, Khadi initiatives or something. But then, Ladakh, and then the village being so remotely sort of placed, they have issues such as, they don't have a reliable source of electricity. So, I think it's just out of such sort of circumstances that the need to use this has also continued. But I think it has a charm to itself, and the products that come out are unlike anything that you'll see anywhere else. So yeah.
And I also know that this was traditionally a craft that was done by men, and this is the first time that he actually taught women how to the craft.
Yeah, so Ajang Thepel, who is one of the last who was one of the last potters of the village, in 2005 trained about 10 women from the village who now also practice the art. But again, there is it's still not a sort of reliable source of income for them. The network of artisans is growing, but at the same time, there's a need to sort of push their work forward. So right now we have Ajang Sepel and his son Rigzin, who's sort of also taken up pottery, and then we have a group of about 10 women from Likir itself who are practicing it.
And I love that there are also all these traditions of sort of firing the pottery only on inauspicious days.
Yeah,
there's something so poetic about that.
Yeah, so that's actually very interesting. And honestly, we, like Bérengèr said, we get to learn more from these artisans than we sort of help. They avoid auspicious days because there's a belief that firing the kiln would harm the insects on the ground, and so things like that, which is very interesting. I mean, the fact that tradition is integrated in what they're doing, and I think these beliefs have some level of scientific reasoning somewhere. So yeah.
So this photo essay is one that will be online and you can go through it. We'll move on to the metal workers.
Yeah.
And it's really nice because if you come to Ladakh, you see a lot of the prayer wheels, which were done by the traditional metal workers. And from what I understand, Lachic, these are descendants of Nepali craftsmen.
Yeah. So the metal workers of Ladakh, mostly settled in Chilling, are descendants of Nepalese artisans who were brought to sort of create those large religious statues in the region. So I think through this essay, we're taking you through the life of a metal worker residing in Soksti, which is also a village very close to Chilling. The thing is, there's been a significant shift in the purchase of metalware in Ladakh, as the market is now full of, machine-made imported goods, which are way cheaper. And, so obviously for these artisans to sort of compete with those metal products is close to impossible. And I think the value of hand-beaten or handmade products hasn't been recognized, especially for the artisans themselves. And for us, I think that's one of the most challenging things, when we're working with them, to make them realize the value of what they're doing. So yeah, and because of which they have also sort of chosen to engage in other practices for to sustain their livelihood. So yeah, this prayer wheel is also, I mean, Ajang Phunsok, who's the artisan in Tsoxti, he's made this himself. That's him, yeah.
So, are most of these objects used for religious purposes, or were they also used in household goods?
No, I mean, it was for both. Most of the kitchenware was sort of hand beaten and made locally. Yeah.
I see that there is a spoon which also has a semi-precious stone
Yeah.
as part of it.
Yeah.
And was that part of a religious ceremonial object?
Yeah. So actually, the spoon, the tinier spoons that you see on the left is actually a religious. It's used for religious practices. It's used during prayers. The one on the right is sort of a kitchenware, and the one in the middle is sort of like a cover for your cups. But I think embedding semi-precious stones or precious stones has been a part of practicing, has been a part of their design from the beginning. But the sad part is now, because it's mostly the plastic versions of these stones that are being added to it. So yeah, we prefer not to use that.
And when you talk about these objects, how are they priced vis-a-vis current day objects? I mean, one of the reasons that you say it's difficult and it's disappearing is it a price issue, or is it more an availability issue?
Yeah, well, I think of course it is price and also the placement of the products in the market, right? Because anybody would know that a handmade product is more expensive than your machine made one, but sort of trying to compete with that also doesn't entirely make sense. But it's about sort of providing that access to the right market and providing that access to the right sort of knowledge in terms of what they're doing, and the value addition to what they're doing is what is the need of the hour.
And finally, I just wanted to ask you, what are the metals that they actually use?
So anything ranging from brass and copper, silverware as well, but again, it's not something they're easily able to sell, so they don't engage in it much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we move on to basket making.
Yeah.
And I know that the basket making was, again, like all of the crafts of Ladakh, it was extremely need based. It wasn't made for any decorative purposes or anything like that, right? And so one of the baskets that actually is used a lot is the one that's strapped on at the back to carry things.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
So baskets have played an important role in the life of the people of Ladakh. The craft of making these baskets were usually found in the areas closer to the river. That's where you sort of find that grass that they used to weave, which is this in the picture. It's called chipkyang. And this, I mean, the artisans that we work with, they live in this village called Chushut, which is also closer to the riverside. But then, when you go towards Nubra, also you see people practicing this art. Again, I think because of the availability of that kind of grass. Although the grass used in Nubra has a slightly different, I mean, it's a different type, but the traditional weave is the same. And these baskets were used traditionally. They were used to carry, I mean, everybody would carry one to sort of carry anything from vegetables to babies. So yeah.
So one of the things that I read in this when making this photo essay was that most of these baskets are also made during the winter season, because the summer season again is when everybody is busy with farming, which is actually their primary source of income.
Yeah.
And so the basket weaving actually happens in the winters.
Yeah. So also that, but the fact that the grass is cut around the month of September, October, and then they dry it for about a month, and then they start the weaving process. Winter is of course a time where everybody has nothing to do in Ladakh, but agriculture, it's not an entire like source of income. It's more at a very self-sustenance level. um, but yes, they are busy with agricultural activities during the summer.
And so one of the things that I see over here is that you did do design intervention with new shapes and
Yeah.
sizes of baskets.
Yeah, so this was, I mean, because again, honestly, the thing is, for us it's also a challenge to we haven't been intervening much in terms of the design. We like what they do, but then it's also important to sort of bring in some intervention to maybe help them sell more. So Ajang Motup, who's in the picture, was extremely sort of excited and enthusiastic about trying these new things, but that's not something we see in all artisans. So that's also one challenge. But I think for us, of course, the products is one, but it's really for us the more sort of important goal is to preserve the skills itself, because promoting the products, yes, but the only way to sort of keep this alive is to get them to pass on these skills. That's more of a priority for us. So the workshops and engaging kids in learning what they're doing is, yeah, what we focus on.
So the last photo essay that we have is, of course, one of the most documented ones. It's the carpet weavers. And this is, of course, a craft that has always been done by women and continues to be done so.
Yes. So, I mean, again, because we're at a very nascent stage, there's a lot that, we also need to sort of study, apart from realizing that there is a need to sort of help them promote whatever they're doing. There are a lot of more experienced people in this field. I think Monisha Ahmed is present here. She's an expert with this. She's also written, I think, a book around this. And what we're really trying to do is, help what these artisans are doing, help them sort of reach the right market. Because we aren't honestly design experts, or we're not design students, but we know that there's a need to do whatever it takes to help them. So the art of carpet weaving is mostly practiced in the Changtang region of Ladakh, Karnak being a part of the area. The nomadic Changpas who keep herd of sheep, yak, pashmina goats, and other livestock consider weaving as an integral part of their life. We work with a group of women from Karnak, but now they live in Karnakling, which is basically the settlement in Leh town. So their family sort of moved from Karnak to Leh for better income opportunities and education, better education for their children. And now their husbands, who were also maybe originally involved in such practices like weaving, have chosen tourism related activities, which sort of seem to provide better economic benefits. So that's, for us, that is a big challenge, and that is a big problem actually, because these women travel back to Karnak every other month to sort of source their raw materials. But in a situation where everybody from Karnak would have to migrate to Leh, because of better income opportunities, then the entire, agricultural land would be sort of abandoned. The entire cycle of the handicraft would get disrupted and eventually lost. So for us, it's really that urban rural migration we see as a huge challenge, and we really hope that in a utopian situation, they would be able to sort of make that sort of income sitting in Karnak and not feeling the need to move to Leh town.
And do you find that at least with this because it's more women oriented, and therefore do you find that at least with the carpet weaving, a new generation is taking it up?
Well, like Bérengèr had also mentioned, the Pashmina industry, of course, is doing well, but there is also a question of what that capacity is in terms of how much Pashmina can be produced. So there is a need to, I think, balance that demand for Pashmina with other sort of products like sheep wool or yak wool. And traditionally, men were, in fact, more involved in the process of weaving as compared to women. Yeah.
That's interesting. So I know that, Andy, if you go ahead, there are some videos that we have, and I was really fascinated with how the wool is cleaned and then spun, because it's again, I think we're so used to seeing the kind of spinning that you use to make traditional yarn, which is like the double wheel spinning, that to see something as simple as a spindle and a bowl to make yarn was again something really fascinating, is the simplicity of the tools that are used.
Yeah.
Andy, if you could probably play those videos. Yes, this is it.
She's taking.
Don't put your hand.
Two and one from the back.
Yeah, yeah. Two is like up and down. Right.
Yeah. I see, because otherwise it wouldn't work out, you know. Yeah. Ako so.
Cái này cái bàn này bún. Ta cái này mình em cứ yêu sinh ha, protein ya. Thế nên mà nãy cho nó xong rồi.
So I wanted to ask you is a couple of questions before we sign off. How has it been during lockdown? I know that in Ladakh, a lot of the villages are not accessible. So have you been able to touch base with the artisans?
Yes, in fact, when the initial few cases happened in Ladakh, that's the first thing we did. We reached out to every single artisan we had on board. And for most of them, because this wasn't in it to begin with their sort of main source of income, but also for most of them because tourism was, and tourism again, even whether it's handicraft or agriculture, it was tourism sort of driving that demand for it. So, Ladakh being a heavily tourism dependent economy, it has hit everybody directly or indirectly. But we've also sort of, we're a very self-sustained, community, and winter for us is anyways a lockdown. So this actually feels like an extended winter. But yes, everybody has been pretty badly hit, especially people directly or indirectly related to tourism.
So just to sign off, I do know that your carpets are available on order, and we do have that the product catalog on our website. But if somebody did want to get in touch with you for the other crafts,
Yeah.
how could they do that?
So you can visit our website. There's a contact us section on it. You can email us and we'd be happy to, get things made for you.
Yeah, and if I can add, just like all the products are unique, as you have seen, so you can customize it as you want. So you can choose the size, you can choose the color, you can choose the shape, and then artisans will work straight after you order it. So we are here to help you also to reach them and to work together for like any design or anything.
My video seems to be frozen because I just wanted to show you a view of Ladakh.
Oh, we can see it.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
So yes, so I'm actually here also in Ladakh, and so this has been quite challenging, but it's been fun to witness.
Send you specifically for this project.
So yes, so all the details of products and Hattie's information is also available on our website, which has been shared on the chat. The photo essays will also be online, so you can take a look at them and go through them in detail. Lachic and Bérengèr, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and we wish Hattie all the best as it continues to grow, and hopefully we will be able to visit you and actually interact with your craftspeople soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You.
Absolutely fascinating getting a glimpse of Ladakh, and hopefully we'll be able to visit you. That's my dream. And I'm sure a lot of people here are saying the same thing on chat. So really, really thank you. Thank you guys.